All right. Well, welcome. And yes, this is our beginning of the week pause. It's already time to take a little pause and do some breathing, get ready for the week. There's a lot that I get to share with you, and ongoingly, it's always there, but we've just officially entered into the eclipse season that we're going to have for the spring, starting with the new moon, the second new moon in Aries that's coming up. So really important to just ground and connect and get ready for how we want to approach this next new beginning. It's really exciting to me that we have another opportunity to start fresh. That's how I like to see it. So I'm excited about that. And we're going to start with some breathing. So if you want to join me, and it's so good to see your faces, we are going to just take a moment. Just find where you are in the room or the space where you are if you're listening later. And just take a moment. Feel your body. Feel your environment, feel the space. Thank yourself for taking a moment here to do some breathing. And if it's comfortable, you can just drop some roots down into the earth and breathing up through the feet, bringing in just this beautiful, clean, supportive energy from the earth, breathing into your belly. Exhaling when you're ready. And then breathing in again, up through the soles of the feet. Expanding your belly. And exhaling when you're ready. And breathing in again. Up through the soles of the feet, expanding the belly. Exhaling when you're ready. And if we can do it this time all together, we will. Breathing in, expanding the belly, and exhaling. And just one more moment here, resting in yourself, honoring the strength of your being, honoring the strength of the earth that is holding and supporting you, honoring the power and the love of the cosmos. And if it's comfortable, imagining this Mobius strip inside yourself that's vertical, bringing in that cosmic energy and that earth energy, and just feeling who you are right now in this moment. That's really what we've got, no matter what I say from here. All right, so when you're ready, come on back and we'll get started. So I'm loving the sun, and I'm trying to find my way with not being like glared with the sunlight today, but I am very excited about it. Feels really good. It was, I got up early. It was one of those mornings that just super quiet, and actually quite warm, which I was really excited about. Warm meaning, 48 degrees warm, which, that's warm for here right now. So there you go. All right, let's just see how we do this. Okay. I'm going to do cards first and then astrology today. I don't know why, but that's just how it's feeling. I think it was the breathing. I just feel us all collectively supported here. So that's the plan. And I'm going to go ahead and use an oracle deck to get us started today. I'm going to use the Sacred Forest Oracle. It seemed like, I don't know, there's just something about it today that called to me. That's usually how this works. Denise Lynn is the author. I've studied her work for probably 30 years. Yeah. Oh, yay. I love that, Elizabeth. So yeah, Denise Lynn, is one of those authors that I started reading a long time ago. I think one of her first books was Sacred Space. And I was like, oh, this is my language. This is my language. There was even numerology in it. And then I had the good fortune to see her in person at a conference back in the early 2000s. And I still, to this day, so it was probably 20 years ago, okay? And to this day, I can still remember the power of the past life meditation that she took the group through and the healing that came from that past life meditation. That's how powerful it was. And speaking of that, segue, mid-May, I'm going to have a guest who I think, we're all gonna love her. She does past life regressions, and she's going to come in and we're going to have a long talk about the work that happens when we move into the healing of those past lives. And it's something I was always able to do with my really early mentors back when I was in my 20s and early 30s. And this wonderful person who's going to come on Cosmic Compass, she's the first person I've met in a really long time who I trust fully and completely to do that kind of work. So I'm very excited to introduce you to her. A lot of us work with past lives. And absolutely, if I refer you to someone, or if there's someone here on Cosmic Compass, you know that they've got my 100% support. And I can contact and connect with past lives. And I really think that when a really excellent facilitator takes you through the process, the healing becomes that much stronger. And so, anyway, just to kind of put that out there. Okay. All right. Without further ado, I'm going to pull the anchor card for today. And it is stillness. It's number 33, and it's the reflecting pool. I know this is hard to see. Okay, let's see if I can make it. Well, okay, there we go. Close. There we go. Sort of close. Anyway, you get the idea. There's a reflecting pool. It's number 33. The word is stillness. I think that, again, as always here, on Cosmic Compass and or in our Tea and Tarot workshops. I really encourage you to, even though it's really hard to see, ironically, right? The reflecting pool, it's hard to see. To what do you see? What do you feel? And of course, I will send out a little info about the card later, but it's definitely, I have a little better view because it's actually in focus for me. But again, what do you see? There we go. I love sun. I'm not closing the blind. I refuse. Okay. All right. So the reflecting pool is our anchoring card. And so, moving into the stillness, finding your still point. And I think this actually makes a lot of sense. I'm going to start weaving in some astrology, I think. With eclipses, the movement becomes very quick. There's a quickening that happens. And I often see the eclipse season being just a tremendous wormhole portal. So this card being about stillness, connecting, makes sense, because as we move into the next openings in the cosmos, being as clear as we can be, I should say, and being still is actually a wonderful way to move through something. The openings will be quite large. And again, Aries new moon. So there's already that fast, powerful energy of the Aries. And then we're going to add the eclipse to that. And and it happens at the last degree of Aries. I mean, there's just so much around it that is really powerful. So stillness. So finding our stillness, where does that reside? For me, I drop into the womb space, finding the stillness there. You can drop into your heart, finding your stillness there. I would encourage all of us, no matter where you drop in, no matter where you find the stillness first, see if you can move that stillness all the way through vertically through your body, all the way down to your feet and then into the earth, and really anchor. Anchoring is really important. Oh, Shannon, excellent. I love that. We'll come back to that in a moment. So again, you're getting me and my Saturn return this year. So I'm probably going to be a lot more teachy and serious. We'll see. I don't know what it's going to be like, but Saturn return officially started last week. And now it will be with me until the end of January of next year. So yay for me. Yay for you, I hope. We'll see. All right, I'm going to pull a couple more cards. This time I'm going to use the Light Seers Tarot, which you're familiar with. Again, love this deck. I love her way of seeing things as well. So from this stillness, I'm just asking for the collective where and what would be helpful. Interesting. It's the Wheel of Fortune. And again, oh gosh, sorry, it's hard to see, but the Wheel of Fortune. And she looks a little balanced there in her tree pose. And that kind of brings up for me something about stillness. Is stillness still, or is stillness a dynamic stillness? So something to think about, right? So there you go. There's a little bit more. Okay, this is really clever. I don't know if you can see this, but see this T-A-R-O-T? Do you see that? Tarot. See, I'm saying it right. Tarot. All right, every time I say it correctly, I get gold stars. Okay, so again, very clever, but also looking at the directions here, looking at the Wheel of Fortune. And again, just, what do you notice? What do you feel? It has a specific meaning, and most of you probably know what that is. But again, the most important is, how do you feel? And when we layer it with the stillness, it's kind of an interesting dynamic energy that's moving in the stillness. Okay, so from there, we'll go to the next card. This card comes up almost every single week. Maybe not every week, but there's a message that's trying to get to us. Okay, 7 of Pentacles. And I think because of the sunlight, it's getting harder to see. Okay, but we love the sun, so we're not ditching the sunlight. So I think you can see it well enough to really feel into what's happening in that card. And again, this card comes for the collective quite often on Mondays, so I think it's fairly straightforward, but again, not to put any interpretation into this at this moment, just let you feel the growth of this card in whatever way is right for you. Okay. Pentacles, I will say this, Pentacles are about the earth, which it seems like you could probably tell that in the card. And sevens are often about, I often look at 7 as a very practical spiritual card. There's movement and stillness in the number 7 numerologically. So that's something to think about because of the first 2 cards, the stillness, and then the Wheel of Fortune. There's a lot of movement in that card, as well as balance. So I'm kind of fascinated by that. All right, our last card, maybe, we'll see. All All right, the Hierophant. And this card has an extra special thing going on there. So I'll just let it have that. That's very cool. This is the 5, and in some decks, it has a more shadowy meaning. There's a historical reference to what the Hierophant was, and I can share a little bit more about that if you want. And in this card, I know you can't really see the details quite well, but there's definitely a lot of dynamic energy and there's movement. Okay, I'll share more. And just take a moment to really feel what you feel here. What do you notice? What do you see? What checks out for you? Okay. All right. He's very happy, just so you know. Very happy. Okay, let me just check the chat here. Yeah. 7 does look like tree post. Thank you, Shannon. That was very insightful. Excellent. Okay, so for the Hierophant, there was a time, and this is where there's a shadowy element. There was a time, as we all know, when the cosmic mother and the matriarchal cultures were, in fact, the most prevalent here on this planet. And there's a lot of support and evidence, and there's a great book, The Once and Future Goddess is a great anthropological book that I like to read, as well as an archaeological book. All of the goddesses that we know, probably many of them that we know from our Greek pantheon or our Roman pantheon, a lot of them have their roots in ancient Sumerian goddesses, and there's even further roots going back to a more matriarchal time. When the patriarchy decided it was time to wipe out all of that wisdom and knowledge around the feminine and around how we create, the creatrix, right? Like, it was clear that women were giving birth. So you think about it from a practical perspective, females were giving birth, males were not giving birth. So early cultures honored the female as the creator because that kind of just made sense practically. And then we have a movement toward that not wanting to be the case, and more power, change in how people viewed the world and their priorities and so forth, as you know. So at that point in time, when there were patriarchal religions, ways of thinking that wanted to take over the matriarchal goddess culture, there was a Hierophant that was created, a person who went between the two and who bridged those two worlds. Now, even saying bridged is maybe being too kind to the historical reference of this. The idea was at that time that the Hierophant would bring the patriarchal culture in and try to wipe out the goddess culture. Now, what I feel like is interesting here and helpful is, I'm going to look for a book, which I don't see. Okay, that's all right. To remember that not everyone was on board with this. So some people who volunteered to be Hierophants, maybe they didn't volunteer, I actually don't know how it was done. They were trying to keep things going. So they really were trying to be that bridge. And so one of my best sources for information is the Mother Piece. Okay, so Vicki Noble, this is a really old book, but again, really good source of information. The word Hierophant in its actual historical meaning does mean the bringer of the light to sacred things. Okay. And again, this book goes into talking about the hierarchy of religion, how the goddess culture was taken over. And there's just a whole lot of history here. So I like something she says here. One does not have to adhere to a patriarchal religion in order to feel the effects of the Hierophant. Women only recently won the vote. We still do not control our own fertility. Opponents of the Equal Rights Amendment cite God's laws as the main reason why women should not have full legal equality. And a woman named Mary Daly, who some of you may know, one of her quotes is, "Patriarchy is itself the prevailing religion on the entire planet." So this is written with a very specific goal in mind, which is to help us see how this happened. And so the Hierophant definitely is, they are not a fan. This is a non-fan Hierophant book, okay? Again, super helpful to know the history. And then we go to my next favorite book, Falling Apart, Angeles Arian's Tarot Handbook. And she takes the anthropological, the archaeological, the psychological, and she adds her piece to this. And I really appreciate what she says. So now we're kind of mother piece, very important. And Angeles Arian says this represents the universal principle of learning and teaching. Okay. So, and then there's a whole bunch of information about that. But what I really appreciate around Angeles Arian's information around the Hierophant is, if we could look at it as an evolving experience rather than a devolving. So when we pull the Hierophant, there's always shadow and always light with everything. But if we're looking for an evolution of that, what she suggests is that we look in our lives as to where we are bringing in that light, where we are teaching, and where in our families of origin, because the number 5 relates to the family of origin, where are we bridging? Where are we bridging from the old to the new? And so hopefully this wasn't too heady for you, but I really think that if we start to put these cards together, and there's going to be one more card, the stillness of reflection, right? Along with standing on the precipice of the Wheel of Fortune in your balanced tree pose with dynamic equilibrium, along with the 7 of Pentacles and what is growing, right? I think that's fairly safe to ask that question. And then what is the light that you want to bring, or what is the light that's needed here? I think we're all very intelligent and informed human beings here. And we know that there is a need for more light to be brought into this world. And so I think the question is, how do you want to do that? What is your way of doing that? And are you a bridge? Are you a bridge between worlds? And that's a really important question to ask as well. And I think many of you here are bridges between worlds. So there's one more card. I'm going to do this in honor of a dear person in my life. I'm going to just pick the bottom card off the deck, not just the bottom card, and see what it is. And it is the 3 of Wands. And I think this one comes up fairly often too, but this is coming up, and it makes sense, right? 3 of Wands, depending on the deck that you're looking at, the interpretations vary just a bit, but I think you can get the idea here. What are we about to commit to? What have we learned? What are we learning? What are we taking in? It's a beautiful card. I mean, these cards are gorgeous. So lots to consider today. Not exactly your light reading, but what do we expect? We're not in light times. So there you go. All right. So again, taking in a collective read, you get to take it in for yourself. I'll take it in for myself. Last week's reading was tough. And I have to say, I did take me all week to turn it around, and I apologize for that. But it really did. It actually, there were parts of it that were super personal in the end. And I thought, wow, I swear I'm pulling these for the collective, not just pulling them for myself. But hopefully, since we're all in this together, these have a meaning for you as well as our entire group and beyond, our community and beyond. So that's our read for today. And I'll share more in the email about what Chris Ann has to say about her cards and what Denise Lynn has to say about her card. But again, I like us to just sit with this because it's really powerful to be in your own intuition and to be with your own guidance around pretty much everything. All right, I am going to pull up a chart, and that will be very exciting for all of us. I'm going to make it a tad bit smaller so we can actually see it. Okay, there we go. And then I'm going to see if I can actually see all of you. Almost. Let's see, can I move that way? No. All right, well, I can almost see all of you. All right, so what we have here is today in this moment. So you can see up here, we still have a very close conjunction. It's not as close between Chiron and the sun. The closest conjunction is this one, the 21 degrees Jupiter along with the sun. This is a super powerful day. All right. This is one of those days, and yesterday was a super powerful day. And actually, however the days have played out for us, power and protection, blessings, they're there and they support us. And I've told so many of you so many different stories over the years, but I think the one story, I want to make sure I say it. Yeah, the one story that has always struck me the most was this. You know what? I'll tell my own story. That way I'm always like, oh, how much do I say? I'll just tell my own story because I don't care. I can tell my own story. Jupiter conjunct the sun, or Jupiter, transiting in a way that brings energy, blessings, and support, right? So when I was going through a really tough time, going through a divorce, Jupiter was conjunct my sun. And, it was just for a couple days. It wasn't, again, but it was in Taurus that year, all year. And that's my sign. So again, where is it in our chart? What does it look like for all of us? But it was in what we consider a very powerful position in my chart for that year, right? So one might interpret that as, oh, well, Jupiter wasn't doing anything. But on the contrary, my friends, Jupiter was doing great work because I was going through such a really hard, traumatic time. And I made it through. I found what I needed. I had what I needed. Even in the mystery of not even knowing exactly how I would ever have what I needed, I won't go into all the details of that, but when I ventured out on that path, there was very little to support me. Okay. And then it all showed up when it needed to. That's Jupiter. Resources, particularly in Taurus, which it's headed into Taurus, resources showing up when they need to. Okay. In Aries, energy showing up as needed, power showing up as needed. And let's look at the shadow side of that. Okay. Energy and power can go many different directions. So how do you want to use this energy and power? What is the highest and best use of that? Not everybody's asking that question, by the way, but you can. And you can ask yourself, what is the highest and best use of this power, these blessings, this support, these opportunities? They're catalytic, they're alive, they're new. The eclipse, the new moon, is in 10 days roughly. By then, obviously, the sun will have moved to 29 degrees of Aries. So what's happening this week, next week, the sun's movement to Jupiter is again bringing them together, bringing them closer. This is the week where the energies really offer support. And so it's good to ask for that support and to be clear about what that support is. And it's really even more exciting when you add in. So it's great to ask for what you need and add in something that will support others, whether those are, whether it's the earth, whether it's animals, whether it's people, situations. Aries is about self. So you absolutely need to start with self. And for a lot of people, that doesn't always feel comfortable, but this only happens once every 12 years. So let's just ask for what you need, okay? Be really clear. What do I need? Be in yourself. What do I need? Now, you may have a really big vision. You may have something you really want to bring into the world. Awesome. Put it out there. Let the universe know. This is what I want. This is what I'd like to do. This is my vision, and claim it. It doesn't make you, you're not abusing power. You're not, this is you owning the truth of what it is you really want to do in the world. So that feels really good to me. So I'm just putting it out there. Again, everything is an invitation. Well, maybe not everything if we're talking about Pluto, but we're not talking about Pluto just yet. But most everything is an invitation. Okay. So then the sun moves in a few days over to Eris. Many of you know already, so I won't go into it too much, but Eris is the goddess who didn't get invited to the party. She was not happy. She went anyway, and she started the Trojan War. Okay. Actually, she didn't start the Trojan War. So let me back up a bit. That's kind of the way the myth goes. Blah, 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 Eris, Eris, Eris. Well, what Eris did is she rolled a golden apple out into the middle of the floor, and and people were fighting over it. Okay. So she just instigated a little bit, but deeper, again, deeper in, because so much of astrology has been written through a patriarchal lens. Okay. So in Embodying the Goddesses, the 13-month program that I have a beta group doing right now, I mean, we are uncovering so much. And Eris is yet another goddess that's written from that patriarchal lens. And Eris, magical, smart, super powerful goddess. She spoke her mind. She didn't hold back in her opinions. She didn't get invited to the party because nobody really wanted to hear what she had to say. I don't know. Some of us might feel that way sometimes, So let's honor Eris. And as the sun moves closer, and actually Jupiter's moving closer to Eris too. So there is a lot coming toward Eris. Let's ask ourselves, because that's really what we can do right here, right now, is, are there parts of me that I am suppressing because I don't want to hear what they have to say? So really take it in on yourself. Is there something in me that wants to have a voice that I'm not allowing to have a voice? So really, just again, invitation, but having an opportunity to dive a little bit deeper into that. And then, of course, collectively, you can absolutely see where there's a lot of voices that are not being heard. And some of those voices are humans, some are animals, some are others out there in the realms. So how are the sun and Jupiter going to support, allow, bring forward, encourage, and again, we're talking Aries, so I'm going to use this word, ignite, ignite the spark, move things along, get things going. Aries is about advocacy in its highest form. Aries is actually, in evolutionary astrology, is about bringing peace, not war. And so how can the peacefulness, how can the energy, it starts here, starts within each of us, and then how is that going to connect with the planet? So again, I'm not the best a person to ask about predictions, because you know that I believe anything can turn a different direction at any given time. We can look at trajectories and we can look at trends. I would say there's a trend currently around people speaking their mind and getting ready to speak more of how they're feeling. And okay, let's see what you want. What do you feel you want to speak up around? For yourself first. Always start with self when it's an Aries, okay? And then move from there. And then, if that weren't enough, the sun and Jupiter are a bit, well, Jupiter's much slower. The sun moves much more quickly, but right before, like right around the 18th, 17th or 18th of April, the sun is going to come up against, not up against, in connection to, give a hug to Vesta. And Vesta is a very high priestess energy. She is a woman unto herself. She is a goddess who chooses, and there's a lot of healing energy that comes through Vesta. Okay, Vesta would be the high priestess who was in charge of the temple. The temple would be there for all those who needed healing to come to. Okay, so Vesta in Aries wants to keep the flame alive. It's hard to see the glyph for Vesta. It's a V, and there's the flame coming out there. So that's cool. I like that. Anyway, so that's happening right around the 17th or 18th. We have birthday coming on the 19th, right around. We have a little birthday in our community here, where there is an eclipse, a solar eclipse coming right at that new moon. That's happening right on top of Sekhmet. Now, if you're familiar with your Egyptian goddesses, Sekhmet's a cat goddess, little kitty, not so little. Oh, there's our kitty friend. I mean, I know you're blurred, but see Sekhmet, and then cat comes into view. It's like a cat knows. If you were to look up Sekhmet on the internet, the first thing you would see is that Sekhmet is the goddess of rage. That's how she's often defined. Again, let's dig a little deeper. What is really Sekhmet the goddess of? She is the goddess of fierce, determined mama love. She is a fierce, loving goddess. You do not get in the way of her, taking care of her children. And she is the goddess who oversaw childbirth and, making sure that the children were given what they needed and all of that. She also, many of these goddesses, in fact, but Sekhmet is our first one that we're seeing here, making sure that women had, that they lived through childbirth, like that fierce determination, that fierce love to get through something. So Sekhmet, again, I've got 3 books all on Sekhmet, and she is a deep and powerful goddess, and she sits at almost 30 degrees. Well, there is never a 30 degree, but she's right about to head into Taurus. So there's like this moment in time where this 29-degree Aries, she is powerful, and she really feeds us in this fierce compassion. And that is something to look at also. So I know I'm bringing it a lot to you, but again, it's Aries, so that's why. But what is it that you feel fiercely compassionate about? What is it that is motivating for you as you, move in through life right now? And many of you are absolutely determined to advocate, to support, to bring healing, hope, inspiration, even more onto the planet. So that's, I'm going to support that 100%. And the cosmos is supporting that as well. So then we get to the eclipse. Now we can talk more about it next time, but it is, again, an extraordinarily interesting time. I believe the stillness card was a reminder, like, get still now, because there's a lot that we get to move through. Now, that's just here. Now, those of you that have worked with me, there's a bunch of other things going on here, that everything gets connected to everything else. And there's, sextiles and oppositions and squares and quincunxes and all kinds of things happening. So just as a reminder, today we're focused on Aries. We are going to be here for a couple, 10 more days. So let's really deepen into this. It is about the self. And those Libras out there, I know who you are. It is excellent to focus on others. Absolutely. We're in this together. And in order to be fully aligned, I think, and congruent with your purpose and your visions, you have to check in with yourself. So as much as we want to be there for other people, and I say we because I have Libra rising, so I'm in the camp with the Libras. I know. We want to really focus on, how am I bringing my best self? And if I'm not, what might I look at here during this next 10 days in order to bring a better version of myself? Okay. So that's okay. Now, what else do I want to say? That's a lot, right? Mars is in Cancer right now. That feels really good. So that's going to offer, Mars is the ruling planet of Aries. So it's the natural thing to look at next. With Mars in Cancer, there is a reminder that the energy of Mars, which is very outward energy, when it's in Cancer, it's going inward a little bit. So if you need more nurturing, if you need more nourishment, if those around you need more nourishment, give yourself nourishment first and then give them nourishment or nurturing. I would recommend hugs. If, give a hug to someone that you are close to, or, maybe not just someone on the street. I know that can be popular, but I don't necessarily recommend that. But, hugs, warmth, embrace, right? A lot of times we'll talk about Cancerian energy and we'll say, oh, the claws coming in front like this are protection. That is true. The Cancer, the crab really wants protection. They're sensitive, highly sensitive. So protection, right? But also I learned from a really wonderful, very amazing astrologer at one point. I had a wonderful session. It's also about hugging. It's not just about protection, it's about hugging. So bringing the arms, the embrace around yourself first, right? We're in this self first place right now, and then around another. Okay. So I remember he told me once about my chart, which I thought was so fascinating, without showing you my chart, but he looked at it and he said, one of the highest things that you can do in your life is give hugs to people. Like that's one of the best things you could do. Like that could be your purpose in life. And that was a long time. That's probably 20 years ago I had that session. And at the time, I was like, oh, that doesn't sound great. Wait, what's that? But I was like, okay, I'm going to take this in. And as I've moved through the last 20 years, I'm like, wow, you're 100%. He was 100% right. Like sometimes a hug is better than any word I could ever say to any person. And I love working by Zoom. It is actually a great way to meet people all over the world. And maybe the one thing that I do miss is being able to give each and every person a hug. So I try to do that through this session. right? Like I try to make sure that you feel a hug coming through, because you know what? He was 100% right. That's the best thing I could do. So for those of you that have some strong Cancerian energy in your charts, think about where you need to hug yourself a little more. Because again, I'm going to focus on the Aries stuff for right now. Where do you need to give you that warmth and that nurturing to yourself? And with Mars there, again, self and energy. In traditional astrology, this is considered a challenging aspect because Mars has so much fire and so much energy, and now it's in this watery, soft Cancer that, as traditional astrology would say, oh no, this isn't easy, this is difficult. Well, yeah, that's probably true. It's probably not always easy to have that much fire in a sign that's very watery and sensitive. Okay, and how do you work with it? Let's make it work for us. Let's not stop with it's challenging. Let's go with how do we want to use that energy? How do we want to use that energy to bring more nurturing to ourselves, to our families, to our animals, to our plants, at least in this hemisphere, if spring is finally springing. And yeah, how are we going to do that? Okay. Pluto's still at 0 degrees Aquarius. It's not going to change. We might ask the question of, wow, things have been a little intense for the last 2 weeks while Pluto's been at 0 degrees Aquarius. Well, yeah. Pluto's going to be there about 18 months back and forth. So let's just get comfortable with a level of intensity. And what can that intensity do for us? Well, how are we going to support others is a big question here. Okay. So the Aquarian energy is very, very much about looking, we call it the humanitarian sign, but I feel like there's another word that I don't know. I'm sure someone out there has a word for this, but that humanitarian, how do we extend that to animals, plants, the earth, and all of that? All right. Oh, I'm sending lots of hugs to our friends out there, particularly the ones that need extra ones today. So again, Pluto and Aquarius, how am I here to contribute? How do I want to help? What is the bigger picture? You don't have to move fast here. Pluto's going to be here a while. It's going to take 20 years to go through Aquarius. So, we're at the beginning. This is a really monumental time to live in, 2010 was when Pluto went into Capricorn fully. If you think back to 2010, and this is why sometimes I think about having a journal nearby. If you think back to 2010 and you think about what you were going through, what was happening in your life, what were the changes, what were the losses, what were the clear remember I said Pluto's not really an invitation, but what was the clear directive as to where change needed to happen in your life at that time? Doesn't necessarily mean you made the change right away, by the way, but what was happening in 2010? Something to consider, not to get stuck in, but just to remember that we've been through a big shift like this before. And for many of us, it changed the trajectory of our lives. This has the same feeling. And for some of us, maybe we're already kind of in that trajectory and it's just going to make it more clear. Maybe for some of us, it hasn't been entirely clear yet, but it will become more clear. Okay. Pluto is, this is not my phrase. I would not use this. This is how I know when it's coming from some other source. Pluto is our ride or die. That's what I'm hearing. I don't know where that comes from. It sounds like a motorcycle thing. But Pluto is here with us to go to great lengths to help us heal. Great lengths to help us change. Great lengths to help us evolve. So we want to give Pluto a little help here. So that's why we're doing all this work up here in the short term. And then each month, as we go through each sign over the next 18 months, we're giving that support to Pluto. So yeah, that's your astrology for today. Let me look at our chat before I close this window. Okay. Ooh, omnitarian. I'll go with that. Supporting vivatarian. Nice, Robin. I like it. I love it. Is that a word though, Robin? Vivatarian? If not, you need to, that's your word. We'll give you credit. Omnitarian could be a word too. All right. Well, I think, Robin, you might have made up a good word, vivatarian. I like it. I'm going to borrow it, especially now. Okay. So let's stop share and going to remind us that we are in this together. This is a thing we're doing together. So again, a lot of emphasis on self, but again, that emphasis on self is primarily to connect with the deeper visions and the deeper awareness of our mission, our purpose, our contribution, right? What do we need to move forward? And that is a really awesome question to ask. What are the resources that I am going to need to move forward? As Jupiter moves into Taurus later, we are going to talk for about a year about resources. Jupiter in Taurus is very much about the physical and internal resources. So we're not quite there yet. We're here at the question. We're here at the discovery. What is it that I need? And being open to that. And that's actually a really awesome question to ask when you're pulling cards. What are the resources I need right now? And then pull a few cards and then deepen into your inquiry around that. And if you want to deepen into more inquiry and you want to do it as a group, Jenna and I do have the Tea and Tarot on Sunday, April 23rd. We're just going to do 4 hours. It's 10 a.m. Pacific to 2 p.m. Pacific. I recognize I got some emails from our friends in New Zealand. Quite sad that it was 3 a.m. their time. So next time we'll pick a time where we'll try to do every other one or something. We'll try to change it, make it a little bit later in the day so our New Zealand friends can join us because we'd like that. Yeah. So anyway, that's what I have for you today. I really want to thank you for being in this space with me. It feels so good and so alive and so wonderful to have all of your energy here. That's why we do this. That's why we do this. So I'm going to encourage you, if you have a question, to put it in the chat. I'm just going to stay here for another minute or two and just see, what's evolving and connecting. So there's still time. So if you and I know it takes a little time to chat, so I'm gonna stretch time a little bit. Okay. Thank you, Robin. I'm glad it's much appreciated. I much appreciate your word, as a matter of fact. Very much appreciating that. All right. I'll stay here. I'm stretching time, just stretching. And just sending you all big hugs. How's that? I'll just be sending hugs right now and see if there's any more questions. And Mary, sending you big hugs right now. The stretch, the stretch, the stretch. I can feel that stretch. And you're not alone in the stretch. So remember, connecting with the earth. Your garden must be beautiful right now. You're welcome. You're welcome. Just looking at the chat here. Eris conjunct natal Eris meaning. Okay, Elizabeth, excellent question. Look at the parts of you that you might have disowned, the parts that want to have a voice. This is your time. What wants to have a voice in me? Okay. All right, you are so welcome. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I look forward to next week. Mwah! Lots of love.